Have you ever seen a room full of warriors, laughing at the wrong person? Men who thought they already knew the ending, mocking someone before the story even began. That's exactly what happened on this day. The after-action review room was packed. SEALs filled the front rows. Marines and soldiers squeezed shoulder to shoulder. Officers stood along the walls. Boots tapped against the floor. Low whispers rolled across the air like thunder building in the distance. And what was the mood? Skepticism. They thought they knew it all already. At the podium, a colonel cleared his throat and said, "Today's debrief will be led by Specialist Nora Reyes." For half a second silence. Then laughter. "A clerk," someone muttered. "Maybe she stapled the battle report," another joked. A Marine captain leaned back and smirked. 361 men almost died out there, and they send us an office girl to explain it. The chuckles grew. The air was thick with disbelief. And yet at the side of the room stood a woman in a pressed uniform, holding nothing but a folder. No Ranger tab on her chest, no medals, no heroic stories stamped across her record. Just a name tag, Reyes. She stepped forward, steady, calm, tapped the slide remote, and on the screen appeared a jagged valley, its ridgelines sharp like teeth. Her voice was steady. "This is the ground that tried to end you." The room grew quiet. The laughter didn't sound so confident anymore. Nora Reyes, she wasn't tall, barely 5'3". She wasn't the kind of soldier people noticed when passing her in the hallway. To most, she was invisible. Just a clerk from S1, the paper shop. The girl who pushed leave forms, typed award memos, routed files to inboxes. Her reputation? Organized, polite, efficient, and forgettable. To the soldiers around her, she was the punchline. She belongs in the office. Clerks don't fight wars. If the enemy comes, maybe she'll attack with staplers. Nora heard it all. But she never snapped back. She just smiled quietly and kept moving. What no one saw was what she was really doing all along. You see, Nora had grown up on the border. At home she spoke Spanish. At school she spoke English. And on the streets, both mixed together like wire braids. By the time she was 12, she was translating bills for neighbors, helping at clinics, even answering police questions for people who couldn't speak English. She learned something powerful. When people panic, the wrong word can cost everything. But if you stay calm and speak steady, you can pull someone back from the edge. That skill, keeping her breath even while others lost theirs, was the very skill that would one day save 361 men. On paper, Nora was assigned to admin duties. In reality, she couldn't stop listening to the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center next door. Radios buzzed through the walls. Reports came in like lightning. Danger close. Fire mission. Coordinates negative. Most clerks tuned it out. Nora leaned closer. Every shift, every night, she absorbed it. By her second year, she had memorized the entire frequency plan. Every call sign. Every alternate channel. She whispered the brevity codes under her breath like prayers. Roger. Solid copy. Stand by. She drew her own maps, sketched valleys, marked ridges. No one told her to. She just did. Sometimes she brought coffee to the comms guys. At first they laughed. The clerk wants to play operator. But they let her watch. She studied how they angled antennas, how they fought static, how they stayed calm when chaos hit. And slowly the radio became her second language. She knew she would never wear a JTAC tab. She'd never jump with Rangers. Never clear a room with a rifle. But in her heart she knew, if the net ever collapsed, maybe, just maybe, she could hold it together. Of course, nobody noticed. Nobody respected it. She was still just the background noise, but every late night she rehearsed. Every fire mission, she logged it away. Every terrain map, she memorized it in her mind. One day, a sergeant tossed her a broken radio as a joke. "Hey, Clark, fix this with your paper clips." 30 minutes later, she handed it back, working. The sergeant blinked. "Huh, lucky guess." Another time, she corrected a lieutenant's grid call before it went out. She had memorized the valley so well, she spotted the error instantly. The lieutenant flushed red, embarrassed. "Stay in your lane, Reyes. What no one knew." She had just stopped a fire mission from hitting their own vehicles. She didn't brag. She didn't correct them. She just kept rehearsing in silence, invisible but ready. What the army didn't know, what her unit didn't know, what even she didn't know, was that soon, Every second of that secret practice would matter, because the day would come when radios went silent, when chaos swallowed the valley, when 361 men were about to be erased from the map, and in that moment, the only person who could hold the line was the quiet clerk they had all laughed at, the one they dismissed, the one they underestimated, the one they said belonged behind a desk. Her name was Specialist Nora Reyes, and her voice was about to save them all. The valley was silent, too silent. That silence, the one soldiers learned to fear, was hanging in the air like a trap waiting to snap shut. 361 Navy SEALs and their attachments moved down the narrow dirt corridor. Jagged ridges rose like knives on both sides. The morning haze blurred the peaks. It looked calm, too calm, and then it happened. The first shots cracked out from the east slope, then from the west, then from both at once. Machine guns hidden in rock nests unleashed hell. Mortars exploded in the dirt, shaking helmets tearing into the column. The valley transformed into a cage. Inside the Tactical Operations Center, the TOC, screens lit up with red icons multiplying like wildfire. A staff captain whispered under his breath, "God help them." The battalion major barked into the net. "Trident actual status?" The voice came back clipped and ragged, pinned down on 3 sides. "Multiple wounded. Ammo low." The analysts looked at each other in horror. "They walked into a kill box," one muttered. The air officer slammed his fist. "F-16s are 20 minutes out. And they can't fire inside 100 meters. We've got nothing." Silence spread across the room, heavy, suffocating. Then came the blow that broke everything. The primary radio operator in the field, the lifeline for all 361 men, took a round straight through the chest. His last transmission cut off mid-sentence. And suddenly, static. The radio net was gone. Inside the TOC, panic erupted. SEAL platoons shouted over each other. Voices overlapped. Coordinates jumbled. East Ridge taking fire. "Request fire mission. We're blind here." It was chaos. The kind of chaos that doesn't just kill men on the ground, it kills them in the airwaves before the bullets even arrive. And sitting in the corner of that room was a clerk, Nora Reyes. She wasn't there to fight. She wasn't there to call missions. She was just supposed to log traffic, pen in hand, clipboard ready. But when the radio turned into nothing but howling static, her eyes locked on the spare handset hanging idle on the rack. Her fingers twitched. Her breath caught. She knew exactly what she had to do, but the room didn't agree. "Get another operator up now," an officer barked. "We can't pass the net to a clerk," the major snapped. "She'll freeze," a sergeant laughed cruelly. "What's Reyes going to do? File the enemy to death?" Another added, "She's just a paper pusher. You want her handling fire missions? That'll kill them faster." The words stacked like sandbags, trying to bury her in the corner where she belonged. But Nora didn't answer. She didn't argue. She just reached forward. Her hand closed around the handset, and she pressed the transmit key. Her voice cut through the chaos. Steady, calm, low. "Trident actual." "This is TOC. Confirm you can read me." For a second, only white noise, then "TOC, we copy." "Who's calling?" She answered simply. "Specialist Reyes, I have the net." The room froze, head snapped toward her. The sergeant who had mocked her hissed, "Are you insane? Put that down before you get someone killed." But before he could snatch the handset away, another voice, ragged but alive, broke through the static. "Copy. Reyes will take anyone who can hear us right now." And just like that, the net had found its heartbeat again. The first test came instantly. "Enemy mortars, South Slope, grid 229578. Need counterfire now." Maps scattered across the TOC table. Officers scrambled with overlays, fumbling to confirm the grid. Nora didn't even glance down. She had memorized the valley weeks ago. She pressed the mic. "Roger, South Slope grid 229578. Adjust fire, shift east 50 meters. Danger close. Authority confirmed." The fire support NCO's jaw dropped. How the hell does she know that grid code? Someone muttered, "She guessed." But then the ground shook. A shell landed exactly where the enemy mortars had been. The tubes went silent mid-burst. A SEAL's voice came through, strained but clear. "Solid copy. Enemy mortars neutralized. Good effect on target." The talk went dead quiet. No laughter now, no smirks. Only wide eyes staring at the clerk with the radio. But the doubt didn't die easy. The major sneered, "One lucky call doesn't make you an operator." The sergeant piled on, She'll choke when it counts. Just wait. As if on cue, another desperate call tore through the net. East Ridge, multiple RPG teams, 50 meters. The air officer swore. F-16 still minutes out. No drones overhead? They're dead if we can't move them. All eyes turned back to her, some waiting for her to fail, some silently hoping she wouldn't. Nora felt every stare drilling into her. She closed her eyes for half a heartbeat, exhaled slow, steady, and then spoke. Trident Actual, mark your position with IR. I'll walk artillery north, 50 meters at a time. Keep your heads down. A pause. Then, copy that, Reyes. We'll hold. Artillery thundered. Rounds screamed through the valley. Nora's voice was crisp, sharp, exact. Shift 20 north, fire. Shift 20 more, fire. Each correction shaved the fire closer to the SEALs, never crossing their line. Each strike bought them seconds, meters, breaths. The smirks faded. The mocking sergeant folded his arms tight, jaw locked. The major snapped his pencil in half. Someone whispered, almost in disbelief, "She's not supposed to know how to do this." And another voice answered softly, "Then why are they still alive?" But the insult still lingered in the air. She's just repeating what she's heard. She'll break when the valley really closes. Yet the radio didn't care about opinions, and neither did the SEALs pinned under fire. They only cared about one thing, whether the voice in their ear could lead them out of the kill box. And in that moment, for 361 men, that voice belonged to the quiet clerk named Nora Reyes, and she wasn't letting go. The valley was still alive with fire. Bullets clawed the rock, mortars ripped the dirt, and over the net, fear crackled like lightning. But inside the tow sea, there was only one sound that mattered now. Nora's voice, calm, steady, precise, trident. Shift fire 30 meters north, break, hold position. Stand by for next correction. Her cadence was flawless, not rushed, not panicked. Like she'd been doing it her whole life. The fire support officer blinked. She sounds like a seasoned JTAC. The sergeant who had mocked her earlier leaned in now. No laughter left on his face. Then came the next storm. West Ridge, multiple hostiles massing grid 2229659, less than 100 meters. Everyone in the room froze. Less than 100 meters was the forbidden zone. Too close, too dangerous. The air officer shook his head. Jets can't touch that. It's suicide. Reyes didn't hesitate. She keyed the mic. Trident Actual, copy West Ridge, grid 229659. Suppression with 60 mic. Adjusting fire. Stand by. Her tone didn't waver. Left 25. Fire. Drop 10. Fire. The howitzers answered, thunder rolling across the valley. Explosions stitched across the ridge exactly where she placed them. A SEAL came back calmer now. Good effects. Ridge suppressed. Corridor opening. The officers in the room stared like they had just witnessed the impossible. The colonel narrowed his eyes. Specialist. How do you know those ridges by name? She didn't look up. Studied them, sir, but she wasn't talking about a paper map. She had walked those ridges in her imagination at 3 a.m., tracing every fold until she knew them better than her own reflection. Then, another wave of chaos. East slope, enemy assault, 70 meters. Panic bled through the net. Reyes's tone didn't change. Trident, designate with spark. Confirm IR marker, east slope, 70 meters. A faint reply came. Spark lit, solid copy. Stand by. She shifted artillery one last time, threading explosions between friendly strobes and hostile muzzle flashes. The radio went silent. For 3 long seconds, no one breathed. Then the SEAL commander's voice broke through. Target neutralized. 0 fratricide. Good work. Relief swept the room like a wave, but still no one said a word. They only stared at her, the clerk, the paper pusher, now running the battle. And then the strangest moment of all, enemy chatter bled into the airwaves. Pashto mixed with static. The assigned linguist wasn't there. Confusion spread like fire. No one understood. Except Reyes. Without hesitation, she keyed the mic. Her voice snapped out sharp words. In Pashto, the enemy chatter cut off instantly. The sergeant gaped at her. What did you just say?" She didn't answer. She just keyed up again. Her eyes locked forward. Trident Actual, threat comms disrupted. Continue movement west. The TOC stared in stunned silence. They didn't know she had been quietly learning Pashto for months, whispering phrases late at night, turning words into tools. And now those words had turned into weapons, not bullets, not bombs, but confusion that stalled the enemy long enough to matter. Slowly the atmosphere shifted. The laughter was gone. The smirks were gone. Even the whispers had died. Officers leaned forward now, listening. The same sergeant who once joked about staplers was sitting stiff, his eyes locked on her every word. And still Reyes pressed on. Guiding fire missions, walking artillery closer and closer, pushing SEAL teams west, carving them a corridor out of the kill box. Her words carried weight. Not panic, not pride, but discipline. Every syllable bought 361 Americans another breath, another step, another chance, and for the first time, the SEALs trusted her voice. And the TOC began to trust it too. The battle outside raged like a storm refusing to pass. But inside the storm had a center, and at that center stood the one no one expected. The Clerk. The invisible one. The underestimated one. Nora Reyes, holding the line with nothing but her voice. And the longer she spoke, the harder it became to deny the truth. She wasn't just repeating what she had heard. She wasn't just filling in for someone else. She was the reason 361 men were still alive. The battle still raged outside. Gunfire chewed through rock. Mortars clawed the earth, and enemy fighters pushed closer, step by step. The SEALs were holding on by inches. Every second mattered. Every correction, every command from Reyes kept them alive. Trident, confirm nearest enemy contact. The reply came ragged, broken. East Ridge. Multiple RPG teams. Less than 50 meters. We can't. The voice cracked under fire. The air officer shook his head. No shot, that's too danger close. They're done, a lieutenant muttered, defeated. We'll lose them. It's over. But Nora didn't flinch. She had walked that valley 1,000 times in her mind. She saw it like a living map behind her eyes. She keyed the mic. Trident, danger close fire mission. 50 meters. Confirm IR marker on friendlies. Silence. Then the SEAL commander's voice, tight but steady. Marker lit, do it. The fire support officer almost shouted, she can't. 50 meters is suicide. But the rounds were already on their way. The valley erupted. A perfect line of explosions stitched across the ridge, close enough to shave stone, close enough to blind the enemy. But not a single friendly marker was touched. The radio went silent. 1 second, 2, 3, and then the SEAL commander's voice came back firm. Good effect. Ridge clear. Corridor holding. The TOC froze. This silence wasn't doubt anymore. It was awe. And then disaster inside the room. Screens flickered. Digital overlays froze. GPS feeds went black. The staff panicked. We lost the system. We can't track grids without it. The colonel looked ready to collapse, but Nora was already moving. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket. Pages crammed with pencil lines, grids, numbers she had memorized weeks ago. She pressed the mic. Trident, stand by. I have your coordinates. Grid 229574, confirm, a pause. Then, confirmed. That's us. The staff stared, mouths open. She was faster than the machines. On the net, another voice broke through. Young, trembling, almost crying. This is Trident 2. We can't move. We're cut off. They're closing in. We're out of ammo. We can't. The TOC froze. Panic spreads like fire when one man breaks. Nora pressed the mic. Her voice dropped low, calm, commanding. Trident 2. Breathe. Static. Heavy breathing. Breathe, she repeated, firmer this time. I have you, the young officer steadied. We're pinned north slope. 2 enemy squads, grid 229582. Solid copy, Reyes replied. Hold position. I'm walking fire uphill, stay low. You're not alone. And then she went to work. Shift 10 north, fire. Shift 20 more, fire. Each blast peeled the enemy back. The trembling voice came back steadier now. Copy. We're moving. Thank you, Reyes didn't answer. She just kept the net alive. By now, the talk had gone utterly still. The same sergeant who once joked about staplers leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at her like she was rewriting the rules of war in front of his eyes. The colonel whispered under his breath, She's keeping them alive with nothing but her voice. Another urgent call. Trident actual enemy vehicle, PKM mounted, North Ridge. Nora didn't miss a beat. Copy vehicle North Ridge, grid 22961, fire for effect. Artillery roared. A blast shattered the ridge. The vehicle fell silent. Target destroyed, the SEAL commander confirmed, his voice edged with respect. In less than 30 minutes, the quiet Clerk had become their lifeline. And then, recognition arrived in the most unexpected way. The battle ended. The SEALs had survived. 361 men walked out alive. Back in the after-action review room, Reyes stood at the front, calmly explaining each move, each correction. She didn't brag. She didn't exaggerate. She just told it straight, and then one of the senior SEAL commanders noticed something. Her sleeve shifted. On her wrist, a tattoo, a radio tower with a string of numbers beneath it. His breath caught. He knew that symbol, Afghanistan 2014, a night when his team was trapped. Radios failing, chaos everywhere. And one voice had guided them out, grid by grid, saving their lives. They had called her the filling clerk. They never knew her name, until now. He rose from his seat. The entire room watched. He walked forward, boots heavy, eyes locked on her wrist. "You—" His voice broke low. "Fayu kept us alive once before." Gasps rippled through the hall. "You were the voice on the net that night in Kunar," he said louder. "The one who refused to let us die." Nora froze. She had never expected to be recognized. But before she could reply, the commander raised his hand and saluted. The room went silent. Every soldier, every Marine, every SEAL froze. The colonel rose to his feet, throat tight, and returned the salute. And then, one by one, chairs scraped back. Boots stomped. Hands lifted to brows, the same men who had laughed at her. The same officers who had dismissed her. Now stood in perfect silence, saluting the clerk they had mocked, not because of rank, not because of medals, but because she had carried 361 lives with nothing but her voice. The colonel's words cut through the silence. Rank does not define courage. Job titles do not decide who holds the line. Specialist Reyes refused to stay silent. 361 Americans came home because of it. The room bowed their heads, not in shame, but in respect. For the first time, she wasn't invisible anymore. In the days that followed, whispers spread. Not headlines, not parades, just quiet respect. She held the net. She didn't break. She kept them alive. The sergeant who had joked the loudest stopped by her office. He didn't bring papers. He didn't make excuses. He just said softly, "You were more soldier than any of us that day," and left. Nora went back to her desk, back to the forms, back to the endless signatures. But now when people passed her in the hallway, they didn't see a background clerk. They saw the voice that had cut through static and saved their brothers. She never wore a ranger tab. She never jumped into battle with ribbons on her chest. She never asked for medals. But courage doesn't always wear rank. Sometimes it wears ink stains on a sleeve. Sometimes it waits in silence until the valley turns black. And then it speaks. And that day, when silence threatened to swallow 361 men, a quiet clerk picked up the radio and said the words that saved them all. "Steady. I have you."